Everyone close your eyes and take a few deep breaths to cleanse and relax yourselves. Oh. Breathe in the wonderful air of this beautiful day. Whether it's sunshiny or cloudy, there's sun in the sky up there. Oh. Creator of all that is, in all your aspects, in all your guises, we welcome you today to our deliberations as we discuss our abilities to connect with the spirit world and with the messages from you folks on the other side. We value your information, we value your love, we value your wisdom, and we ask that you all be with us today and help us to learn more and more about how we can connect with you and learn how to make this a better world to live in. We ask this in the name of love. And so it is.
So it is.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sally.
Yep. So, Kevin, you might have read that today's discussion is going to be about mediumship and psychic abilities. Morning, Debbie. Morning, Carrie. Morning, Laura. We waved, but we didn't say hi.
Morning.
Welcome, welcome.
Good morning.
Okay. We're going to be pooling our collective knowledge about psychic abilities and mediumship. Nikki has just been through an intensive workshop on the subject with experiential workshop. I've been reading a book on it and have experienced a few things in my life. Paula has experienced quite a bit. I don't know about the rest of you, but we're going to open up for discussion in a few minutes on people can share their stories and their thoughts on this. So Nikki, do you want to start? Or do you want me to start by reading from that book that I have?
You can go ahead and start, and then I've got like 9 shamanic tools we'll talk about.
Okay, all right. I've been reading a book called Mediumship: The Ultimate Guide to Becoming a spiritual medium and psychic. And in this book, chapter 2 talks about different types of mediums, which I didn't realize. I knew that there were different things, different ways that we connect, but this one is pretty good, this chapter. So I'm going to briefly talk about the different types. Mediumship channels guidance from those who have gone before, not only for the sake of those who are here, but also for those yet to come. And that was said by Anthony St. Martin. Mediumship is a far cry from what most people believe it to be. It manifests in people different ways. There are various types of mediums. Although the end goal is obtaining information from the spiritual plane, all mediums are different. There are 4 main types of medium. The kind of medium you become depends on your dominant psychic trait. Humans intuit in 4 ways: through thoughts, feelings, energy, or the physical body. A person who intuits through emotions is an emotional intuitive. A mental intuitive absorbs thoughts and mental energy. A spiritual intuitive intuits via the human energy field, and a physical intuitive intuits by absorbing energy into the material body. Most people have all 4 means of intuition, yet there's a tendency to be more predisposed to one or 2 than the others. And then, okay, it goes, there's emotional medium. An emotional medium absorbs the emotional energy of spirits, often without realization. They can feel the range of emotions and feelings expressed on the other side better than any other medium type. Suppose you have ever had an influx of healthy, loving emotions with no idea of the source. There, you may be an emotional medium. And it goes on and on and on about that. Then there's, I'm looking for a spiritual medium is capable of seeing spirits and departed souls. They tend to communicate with the spirit realm through dreams and daydreams. They can do this because their dominant psychic sense is clairvoyance, which means clear seeing. Clairvoyance allows spiritual mediums to receive visual messages from the other side. Spiritual mediums typically receive intuitive drops in ways I would describe as elusive. Being a spiritual medium means your connection with the spirit planes may feel dreamy, almost to where you feel like it is imagined. With clairvoyance as your main psychic channel, you may have seen ghosts, spirits, and other ethereal beings and dismiss it as your eyes playing tricks. Spiritual mediums have a depth of wisdom, which allows them to learn life lessons and purpose intuitively. As a spiritual medium, you can intuit your life's purpose and that of those around you. You need not visit psychics to discover specific things about yourself. Having the gift of inner sight enables you.
Back's out. She can't work tomorrow.
Having the gift of inner sight enables you to see energy figuratively, symbolically, or realistically. You can see departed loved ones in their spirit form. This ability happens either through your inner sight or in the form of translucent beings. Sometimes they can appear to you as three-dimensional figures in this realm. Okay, now. A physical medium, the defining trait of physical mediums is their ability to interact with spirits through their gut feelings. Spiritual messages come to them in the form of physical sensations. An excellent example of this is when the hairs on your arm stand up while reminiscing about a deceased loved one. Perhaps you have had gut feelings that a departed friend or family member is present. You may sense that they are standing behind you or simply get a sensation of their warm hand on your back. These are just some ways that spirits connect with physical mediums. Assume you are a physical medium. In that case, you can tangibly interact with spirits and otherworldly entities. Souls that have passed have a knack for things such as blinking lights, dropping items on your path, and ringing the doorbell for no apparent reason. Although these happen to many mediums, they usually occur more often to physical mediums. Physical mediums are adept at psychometry, which is the ability to intuit energy from an object. When you look at a deceased person's photo, you can get a lot of information about them if you are a physical medium. Physical mediumship makes you more connected to the impermeable physical vibrations from the spirit world. The connection gives physical mediums a psychic advantage over all other types of mediums. Information intuited through physical vibrations comes as a gut feeling or knowing, a sense of a spirit's presence, or through the gift of insight. Any message sent from the other side triggers specific physical sensations in your body, causing you to pay attention. And let me go back to that first. Okay, we're going back to mental mediums have the gift of claircognizance, which translates to clear knowing. The psychic sense allows you to know information and knowledge without a clue about the origin. Having claircognizance as your predominant psychic modality means you can communicate with ethereal beings through your thoughts. You may know the thoughts, ideas, and beliefs of a loved one on certain subjects without a clear idea of how you have this information. It's pretty interesting. So there you've got sort of in a thumbnail sketch about 4 different types of mediums. let's see, emotional mediums, clairsentience is what an emotional medium uses. That's what that's called. Okay, so I've done those 4. And I'm sure each of us has probably experienced something in our lives that would fit into one of those categories. So I know I have. I've seen a ghost when I was, a couple times when I was little. And mostly I sense things in my gut. But I have had spirits actually talk to me through my husband one night. I'll explain later. And like that there. I don't see auras. I don't see, spirits, but I know they're there. They talk to me sometimes too. So, okay. So, Nikki, do you want to continue? And
Yeah, unless anybody wants to share based on what they heard, what they think their gifts are. Because I've actually got 9, so it even splits that up a little bit more, but they're all very similar, so.
Yeah,
Anyone?
I don't see auras either, but I sense what their color is. A color just pops into my head when I look at someone. But and I get things that I sense, but I don't actually see them. For example, I was doing Reiki on a woman at a Reiki fair, and I sensed that there was a young man standing in front of her. And when I finished, I asked her if she knew of a young man in spirit, and she started to cry because she said she had just lost her brother.
oh, and he was there, huh?
Yeah, I guess that's who that was. And I did the same thing with Helena after her husband passed. I was doing Reiki on her, and as I was at her feet, he walked into the room and walked around us and knelt down next to her. And I saw her put her arm out to touch him. And when I finished, I asked her if anything unusual had happened, and she said, Chris came in the room and knelt down beside me, and I reached out to touch him. So we both saw the same exact thing at the same time. That was pretty amazing.
Mhm.
And just one other thing I wanted to tell you about was I was doing laundry once in my basement, and as this was after both of my parents had passed. I'd never heard my father say, I love you. Never heard those words from his mouth. I was doing laundry and I turned around, and on a shelf where I keep like old rags and stuff, something red caught my eye, and it was a greeting card. And why a greeting card would be in my basement, I have no idea. But there was a greeting card. It was a Christmas card. And the front of it was red, and it had a cat on the front of it. And my father loved cats. He was always feeding farm cats because they had a house out in the country on a lake. And he would feed the cats all the time. And it was Merry Christmas to my daughter. And opened it up, and at the bottom in his handwriting said, I love you, Dad. It was amazing.
Yeah.
Mm.
I still have that card.
Well,
He
sure.
did say he loved
Very
you.
precious.
Yep.
Very precious.
Those are
Anybody
just a
else?
couple of things that have happened for me.
Yeah.
When I was, I think about 3 or 4 years old, I was old enough to be able to form sentences and speak my mind, much to my mother's chagrin. I came down to breakfast one morning, and I asked if the grandfather of a little girl that I played with occasionally, if he managed to find his dog last night. And he kind of looked at me like, what? And I said, yeah, I out of my bedroom window, I saw him walking across our backyard and into the field and calling for his dog. And I saw his dog running up ahead. And he was calling to the dog. And I don't remember what the dog's name was anymore. I was 3 or 4. And they said, "When did you see this?" And I said, "Last night." And they all got quiet. My mom, my dad, and my mother's dad, my granddaddy. And they all kind of looked at me, and my mother said, Mr. I don't remember what his name was, but he passed away about 3 days ago. And I said, she explained to me what passed away meant. And I said, "Oh, but did he find his dog?" It didn't faze me. Okay, fine. Did he find his dog?
Yep.
And there was another time when I was much younger than that and was never able to articulate this, but I saw a spirit coming up the stairs. My bedroom was right at the top of the steps, and the door opened out onto the landing. And coming up the stairs in the middle of the night was, all I can say, must have been a spirit. It was shaped like a giraffe. Very, very strong impression of a giraffe. It was coming up the stairs to say hello to me. So there was that. And then clairaudience, I guess, one night, not too long after I had been ordained as a minister. I'm lying in bed, John's fast asleep beside me, and I'm mentally communing with the universe and saying to the powers that be out there, am I doing the right thing? How am I doing? Am I being effective? How this, am I doing this right? So forth and so on. And John rolled over. He was sound asleep, and in a voice that was not his, the message was, "You're doing fine, Sally. Just relax. Everything is in good order. Everything is fine. You're doing a great job." And then John rolled back over, and and that was it. And the hairs on my arms and my head, everything just sort of, whoa, chills from top to bottom and back up. And I knew that was not my husband telling me that. So that was pretty profound. So those are 3 major experiences that I've had. Different types of things. 2 were clairvoyant, and 1 was clairaudient. So
I don't know what you'd call mine, but when I was very young, the very first wake that I ever went to was my grandmother's. And because, I was young, my parents had a neighbor drop me off with my brother at the house because they didn't want us to have to stay for the whole service, because back in the day they did it for like 3 hours, afternoon and then in the evening. And I remember walking into my bedroom, and I saw my grandmother sitting on my bed, and it freaked me out like beyond belief, because I was just a child and I didn't understand. But as I grew older and got on my journey, if you will, and had some readings, it's her who is always with me, because she always comes through as who's the woman with the long gray hair on the top of her head, with an apron and a dress on, and that would be my Lithuanian grandmother, who never wore pants. So that was something. And then to find out that she is she's always with me. She always comes through at any of my readings, which is kind of interesting. So that was my first experience. My second amazing spiritual experience, and Sally and Laura, you were there, was the day that I was ordained. Sitting in that circle, I just melted down. Something very, very profound and very, very beautiful happened to me. And I couldn't talk, as you all know. I was just so emotional. So that was very, very profound and embraceable, and a great experience. And then my third thing is, doing hospice work. I've seen a lot of things near death. But my best experience was when I helped a friend of mine who did paranormal stuff, and we did the Cheney homestead in Manchester. And it was actually an article in the paper, and the evidence that we found, we gave to the Historical Society. We got some EVPs, and we got like this LED light that appeared over this dead bed, which was the bed that they used to place people on, because as you know, they wake people in the homes back in the day, and there was like a tray underneath that they put the dry ice in. And so for whatever reason, I was very moved to set up the camera in that room, and myself and another girl sat in that room, and we started to ask some questions. And I had the Cheney homestead, I had the Cheney family Bible sitting on my lap when I did this. And I started to ask a question, and at the foot of the bed, a very tiny red, I look at it as like a laser light, looked just like that, appeared at the foot of the bed. And as I would ask questions, very, very slowly, extremely slowly, it kept on moving, and then it would stop at the head of the bed, and then it blinked, and then it ended, and we got it on video. And like, there's just no way that, I mean, we checked fire alarms, we checked, everything to try to debunk what our experience was. And then on top of the fact that we got an EVP with someone saying, after we asked if anyone was there with us, you got this really deep voice that says, "I'm the only one." And you can tell as clear as day, it's somebody's scruffled old voice, which is kind of interesting. So that fed, what I kind of already thought of from a teenager, that there's just something else out there, in another life, whether it be spirit life or something. So I'm glad for all those experiences, because, now we, it's like, it's proof to me,
Mhm.
that there is something out there, which is really cool.
Thank you for sharing all that.
Yeah.
Those are pretty interesting.
And has anyone
Hmm.
ever had the radio come on, like just out of the blue? You didn't turn it on, but it came on with a certain song?
When my father was dying, yes. I had a CD player, and nobody put it on. When my father was on his deathbed, the CD player came on and started playing Johnny Mathis, which was one of my father's favorite people in the world. And nobody can say how that happened. So that was very weird.
I had a dear friend that passed away very young. He was only 40, and we were really good friends. And at his funeral, they played the song "Wind Beneath My Wings."
I love that song.
And I bought a music box that played that song, just because I was so moved by that song at his funeral, because that was him. I mean, he was just such an awesome person, and always helping other people. And that song was so appropriate. And so I bought this music box, and like a year or so after that, I'm sitting at my desk one day, and for some reason I thought of him, and all of a sudden that music box started played that song. I know that was him.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. Very cool.
My earliest supposed thing was I was about 2. My mother had put me down for my nap, and I woke up from my nap and I was crying, and my mother said, "What's wrong?" And I said, "Mama's gone." And she said, "No, Mama's home." And I said, "No, Mama's gone." 5 minutes later, my aunt Eleanor called my mother to tell her that her mother had crossed over. And suddenly, I mean, she was older, but my mother just sort of looked at me like, "How'd you know that?" "Well, I saw her. I said that to her. I saw her. She said goodbye." And I'm like, "Yeah, right." Okay, fine. At 4, I tried to fall out of my parents' car. I was in the back seat. We didn't have seatbelts back then. So, you know, I was playing with the door handle, typical kid. I fell out of the door and a big angel pulled me back in. When I
Wow.
tried to tell my parents,
Oh.
they said, where I was Catholic, we don't talk about that
Yeah,
stuff.
thank God forbid, huh?
Yeah, oh, horror, yeah. When I met Matthew and decided to marry him, both of my parents had already crossed over. Now, my father hated Jews. He hated Italians, he hated Jews. I never found out why. I didn't really care. Matthew's Jewish. So I was getting a Reiki treatment from a nurse friend of mine. And all of a sudden, my father is standing there with my mother and my Nana. And I looked at him and I said, what are you guys doing here? And my father said, about Matthew. And I said, now just stop that. I'm going to marry him whether you like it or not. I love this man. And he looks at me, goes, you didn't let me finish. I said, well, I knew you were going to be negative. He goes, well, negative over here. I said, yeah, well, what do you got to say? And he goes, he's a good man. He's a keeper. He'll be good to you. I cried so hard. I had to sit up because I was drowning.
Oh,
So, you know, it was nice to hear my father say it was okay. Not that it was going to change anything if he didn't, but,
Yeah.
And I've been working on my psychic stuff since then. And so, but that was the most monumental. He's a good man. Keep him.
Yeah.
And I have 27 years. He is a good man.
When we
Anyway.
were,
Mhm.
when we were in Arizona, at the first in Phoenix, it was right outside of Phoenix, around where Shirley Catanzaro was living. They had a conference that year, and Red Basket had ordained me in the summer, and then when we went out to this conference, which was my first one, they ordained me again there. And then at the end of the weekend festivities, that Sunday, we had all gone out to lunch. Shirley Catanzaro was there, and Judy Heilman and her husband and a couple of other people. And we were in a booth, and I was sitting on one side with somebody, I think maybe Red Basket, and the others, they were kind of sitting around across, and somebody was talking, and all of a sudden, I think it might have been Judy, looked at me and said, you have a number of people in old-fashioned European clothing, like Eastern European clothing, lined up behind you with their hands on your shoulders, and they're all nodding their heads in appreciation and like benediction sort of thing, like, yeah, this is cool, and and approval. And she said, do you have any ministers in your background? And I said, well, I've got the Moravian missionaries. I come from a long line of those. And they said, well, that must be who they are, because they were all, you know, giving their approval for my being ordained as a minister. And although I didn't see it and I didn't feel it, everybody else at the table did. So that was pretty cool. Oh.
You guys all know, do you all know Mo? Do you remember Mo?
Yeah.
She was in the Sedona, where we did it at your temple,
Yeah.
Nikki.
Yeah.
That's where I was ordained. And we were doing ceremony on a hill, and I kept seeing perfect circles everywhere. And we were doing some kind of prayer. And for some reason, I opened my eyes, and Mo was right across from me. And she was not Mo anymore. She was White Buffalo Calf Woman. Now, I had no idea that was her sacred name. And I just stood there and looked at her. And White Buffalo Calf Woman said, don't worry, you're really seeing me. And I went, okay, fine. And I looked over to the left, and there were a bunch of Native Americans on painted ponies shaking their head like, this is good ceremony. This is good. and then they disappeared. And when I told Mo later, she goes, "Oh, didn't you know that's my sacred name?" I went, "No." I mean, this was new to me. But yeah, she was standing right there, and I'm like, okay, fine. I did see that. All right. I'm not hallucinating because I didn't smoke anything funny that day. So, but yeah.
But don't you think that those experiences, Paula, happen almost like to teach us, to confirm, what
Yeah.
what is, if you will, like
what
they're
I
just so
could do.
embraceable.
Mm,
Mm.
well, convinced me to take classes from G. Mandeville.
Yes.
Mm.
I'm gonna have
Yeah.
to say goodbye. My granddaughter's here from New York City and she's out at my daughter's, so I'm gonna go join them.
Oh, enjoy.
So
Well,
I don't
happy
get to
Mother's
see her
Day.
very
Good time,
often.
honey.
So
Happy
happy
Mother's Day.
Mother's Day, everyone.
Thank
Yes,
you.
happy
You too,
Mother's
you
Day.
too, Kevin.
Everybody
Hi,
has
Kevin.
one, so we all get to
Happy
celebrate.
whatever
Yes,
day
that's
to you,
true.
Kevin.
Okay.
That's right.
Enjoy your day.
Thanks,
See
Laura.
You too,
see
Laura.
you
God
next
bless.
Bye,
week.
honey.
Bye-bye,
Namaste.
Laura.
Bye-bye.
In 1996, I think probably, or 96 or 97, 96, yeah, around 96 or 97. John and I, my husband, John and I were looking for property because we wanted to build a house. And we were looking here in Charlestown. And it was a January morning. It had snowed the night before. It's beautiful, beautiful. And it wasn't quite sunrise. It was dawn, but it wasn't quite sunrise. And so trees and stuff were sort of still in black silhouette. And we had heard about a piece of property. I had heard about a piece of property and I went to look at it before I went to work. And I drove in and I sat there and I looked and I thought it was a sort of a wooded area, but I drove into sort of a meadow area that was surrounded by a hill and a flat spot at the top with trees and stuff. And I looked at it and I thought, wow, this is really pretty here, And so I opened my car door and I got out of my car and took a couple of steps. And I was looking up at where the house now sits. And I had the overwhelming feeling of welcome. It felt as though a whole group of people were rushing toward me and enveloping me in a group hug of so much love and welcome. I've never felt that before in my life, either before or since. It was just remarkable. And really, I had to take a step back because it was like physical. And I could hear, with my mind, I could hear, "Welcome home, Sally. We've been waiting for you for such a long time. We're so glad you're here. Welcome, welcome, welcome," over and over and over again. And this enormous group of people hugging me and welcoming me and so forth and so on. And I said, wow, well, I'm glad you're welcome. It's like, I wasn't scared by it. It was just an overwhelming feeling of love and acceptance.
Mhm.
And of course, then I got back in my car. And then when I got home that night, I said, John, you got to go take a look at this piece of property. And so he did. And he had a similar feeling of welcome, not like I did, but, he's on a different spiritual path than I am, but he felt welcomed there. And he says, yeah, okay. So we proceeded to buy the property and we now live here. And we have seen orbs, tons of orbs around the place. And a couple of the ladies that used to come to the circle that I held every Sunday saw when we were doing special ceremonies and stuff, she would see the Native Americans gathered around. And when we bought the property, we were then told that it had been Narragansett land. And we live right across the
Mhm.
street from the reservation, literally right across the street. And there's a front portion of our property that there's a path that's still there that leads down the hill, would lead down the hill, but there have been houses and stuff built, would lead down the hill to Narrow Lane where their royal burial ground is. And it was their
Mm.
processional way, and that they would utilize this. And at some point in the past, the Narragansett actually lived on the property as part of their reservation area. And so they guard the place for me, you know, so I've been very reverent to them and said, thank you for letting us be custodians for a while, you know, and yeah, they come whenever there's ceremony. Paula's has been witness to some of it. And so has Laura. So it's this place is pretty sacred. I feel very very honored and fortunate to be able to live here. So
Shirley, did you ever come to our home on RFD Road in Stafford for any ceremonies that we did in the backyard? I don't remember.
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Anyway,
No, I've
We
never
had,
been to where you live.
okay. We had a beautiful home. We don't live there now, but we lived on 9 acres of land. And after we were there for a while, we did some research and we found out that we actually are, the land that we owned, there was a Native American burial ground. So time goes on, my kids grow up, and now I'm like on my spiritual journey and I'm starting to do this paranormal stuff. And I decide that I'm going to do stuff and I'm going to check my house out because, you know, I always felt that there's some kind of a spiritual connection. And everybody that ever came up there when we did ceremony would always remark on how beautiful and calming it is, blah, blah, blah. So we did some stuff, and I have a picture above my garden in the front yard, and it was someone outside, and we were calling in the directions, calling in spirit, and it looks like a lightning bolt, but this is at night. And I have that on film. And then in the house, the same thing. In the bedroom, the cat was on the bed, and all around the cat there's like this fog, but it's only around the cat. It's just the weirdest thing. And then in the attic, there was a crazy picture. And I thought, like, Mike, did you stage this? Because that's like kind of freaky. What's that picture of? And it kind of looks like the head of a ram, if you will. But I kind of looked at it as like some kind of Native American headdress or something like that. But I have all this stuff. I have the pictures. I put them in a photo album. And it was pretty amazing. And we still to this day have no idea what that picture is about, but we never felt anything negative, you know what I mean? Like nothing bad ever happened. I didn't look at it as anything evil or anything like that. And it was sad when we had to leave, but while we were there, it was nice, as you say, living on something that is, you know, to be honored. I think that the spirits enjoy us being there and taking care of it. You know what I mean? So that was
Yes,
really
quite a
kind of cool.
privilege. Quite a
Yeah.
privilege.
Yep. Absolutely.
Anybody else have any experiences that they want to share? Okay,
Do that
let's
too,
hear
but
it.
Carrie had something to share real quick.
Oh, Carrie,
Oh,
okay.
sorry.
No, go ahead, Carrie.
It's okay. I'm phase shifted because of the satellite internet. I'm in a whole different timeline than you all are. The main thing that pops into my, there goes the phone, of course.
Call from Frank Adam.
Main thing that pops into my mind is my husband and I, our first time we went to Great Britain, we stopped in Dartmoor, the moors on the western side of England. And we're just walking through kind of a misty, foggy, overcast day. And they had all these old stone houses that you could walk through, just the remnants of it. All right, my brother-in-law. The one specific one we walked through, there was a pressure on my chest. It was very distinctive. And Jason walked through right behind me and basically turned around and said, "Did you feel that?" And both of us were just very, okay. Well, it didn't feel threatening. It didn't feel like anything that was dangerous, but it was very distinctive. It just felt very, very clear. And another quick one was I was on a trip to Bali, gosh, 15 years ago, when I was just starting to do some writing, and had one short story that I really liked and wanted to do more with, but it was on my mind the whole time that I was doing something wrong. And after one, almost toward the end of the trip, I just felt like someone was tapping on my shoulder, just very persistent, and just would not stop. A group of us were on a trip, and I just said, you know what, I'm not going to go see what this is. I need to go sit down in the van and write, and got out my notebook and was very clearly, you're seeing me wrong, and got just wrote for about 45 minutes. I was kind of doing the opposite of what the character actually was. And by the end of that, I couldn't focus on anything else. We had two or three more stops to make, and I was just, walking was a challenge. It was that much out of my physical body. It was very, very strange. But that led to all the other stuff I've written since then, just that more perceptive, I think, just that better connection to character, wherever that comes from. So that was a huge one. And this sort of thing goes into my fiction all the time. Dream communication and, ghosts and magic. And it's just constantly there. But those two were the most specific experiences.
Have you ever thought that perhaps the characters you write about were really real at one point?
It feels to me like I'm spying on their lives, that in fact, I just finished and I'm getting ready to release a short story collection that's called Spies of the Imagination. And it gets into that I'm just the spy. I'm just kind of peeking in and kind of writing down what they're doing. It has nothing to do with me. It's just whatever I'm overseeing. It was so much fun to write with that in mind. But yes, absolutely. Whether it's a different dimension, who knows? The multiverse physics proves more and more that the multiverse is a real thing. So that satisfies my scientific nature on these things. But yeah, I feel like I'm just overseeing.
Sometimes when you read a fictional story and you've got a couple of characters that are so compelling, they're within the storyline, they might not be particularly important characters, but to you, the reader, they're so compelling. This has to have been a real person at some point, in some, like you said, in the multiverse somewhere, so you can really connect with them, because I've had that experience before when I've read a story that had a couple of characters that were just so affected me so profoundly, and yet they weren't particularly important characters in the story necessarily. I thought, okay, what's going on here?
So this class I've been taking talks about a series of books that was written by Xavier something from South America, where he literally, I believe it was Portuguese from Brazil, he literally channeled these books. And so he was going around the world teaching his ways, etc. And they made a movie about him. And I gave you the link to the movie last week called Astral City. And it basically talked about the multidimensional way that we exist with spirit, people who are crossing over, people who are in purgatory versus in this place where they are the healers that are going to be sent back reincarnated to go work on their stuff. And so it was a really interesting depiction, and kind of just described the whole process of living and dying and returning, and those that do see and those that do hear and feel. And so the woman that I took this course from is teaching the shamanic ways, and she goes very deeply into, she's been blessed by a Native American church, and she's been honored to be able to carry eagle feathers. She does have some native blood, but she looks very white. So she takes a lot of controversy because, a lot of natives will say, don't teach this stuff. But she's compelled to teach. And the Native American church I was involved with in Sedona was also the same way. They basically said, bring these messages and these gifts to the white people. Everybody needs to know these things. And so these 9 shamanic gifts, I'll share my screen so you can see these. I think you might have to have a email address to get that document, but I've given you the link in the chat there. So we have 9 shamanic gifts, and they correlate with what Sally was saying was the 4. So there's the clairvoyance or the clear seeing, and you can go through some of the details on this. There's the clairaudience or clear hearing.
Mhm.
And then these two, clairsentience and clairsentience, were the most confusing to me because I've had a little bit of experience with both, and I never really understood that they were different from each other. So there's the physical sensing, and then there's that feeling that everything's either good or bad or wrong or right or whatever, where you just kind of
Mhm.
feel things, and that's the empathetic or the emotional piece that Sally was referring to, where empaths will take on negative feelings from other people, and sometimes if you don't know how to clear that, then you'll become depressed and sad yourself. Then there's the claircognizance, which you were speaking of, clear knowing, where you just know things. And this is what I thought I had, because I have what in my work or in my ministry too, I have these what I call moments of brilliance, where it's just, I just know the right thing to do or the right path to pursue, but I don't necessarily know the bridge or the path to get to it. So I skip steps to see, because I already know the end. And I find that that holds me back because I miss things. And so people aren't on the same page when I'm speaking with them, and they don't necessarily buy in. And so that's been a real challenge for me. But then there's the automatic writing. And this particular Xavier, this shaman or shamanic man, was basically one who would write. And that's how these books came out, this series of books. And they said that even late in life, he had gone blind and all these things had happened to him. And these assistants would sit with him and just move paper out from under his hand. His hand would just write. And it was like led by spirit. And there's a psychic medium on IMDb TV. I forgot his name, really young man. And he's the one, he scribbles. And so in his scribbles come the messages, and then he starts to transmute whatever is being told.
Is he blonde, a blonde kid?
Yes,
I've seen him. He's quite amazing.
he is. He is.
Tyler
Yeah.
Henry.
You know him?
Tyler
Hmm?
Henry is his name.
Okay.
But
Tyler Henry.
thank
Tyler
you.
Henry.
And
Thank
Yeah.
you.
he
Thank
also
you,
goes
Kevin.
as the Hollywood medium.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
he's very good.
Yeah, that was kind of an amazing show. I watched the whole series, and it's like, wow, this young man doesn't know it any better, and he just kind of allows it to all come through. But I guess at the end of the series, they were saying that it was taking its toll on him, so his health was suffering. Then there's xenoglossia, and I've actually experienced this, where you speak in tongues, and I've been told that I speak in tongues when I'm in that phase of falling asleep or just waking up. So it's like I'm not conscious of it, and I don't even know what I've said. But they say that I just ramble in this language that doesn't make any sense. And so I'd be curious to see what that's all about. And then there's irradiation, where it's physical movements. It's like the people that can move objects across the table or across the room.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then there's incorporation or embodiment. And that's when you literally have a being enter your body and coexist in your body. And I've had this happen to me. And I've always been told that if it's not invited, that you should shut it out and get rid of it. And so I've had a lot of experience where, it's like, I didn't ask for this, and I don't know if you're here for my good, or for the greater good. So I'm asking you to leave. So this woman, Rose Cole, is basically saying, in her classes, she teaches you to discern between the good energy and the bad energy. So I'm really curious to pursue this. But she was basically saying, out of the 9 shamanic gifts here, that we tend to lean toward 3, maybe your top 3. And so in an exercise, she had us just kind of go through and say, okay, what are your top 3? And that's what we'll focus on when we go through these meditations and clearings and attunements and all these things. So it was a really interesting weekend course. And I would like to say, if you download this item, what three are your top? And she does say, we have them all, we just don't develop them, right? And then she goes in to talk about
Right.
how we are not shamans. We are not to call ourselves shamans, and she doesn't call herself a shaman. What she does is she teaches shamanic gifts or shamanic ways, and that we take on these tools and these behaviors, but we do not call ourselves shaman.
Hmm.
So let me show you her picture. There she is. So you see the high cheekbones. She's got, I think, Apache in her lineage. And she shared a lot of stories about how an uncle who was Heyoka, the sacred clown, would come and mess with people in her class. And so as she's training people to be teachers of this pathway, one said, I have somebody calling himself Alfred, and he keeps picking on my fingers. He keeps pulling my fingers. And she had to laugh. She says, that's my uncle. He's the one that raised me, because she came up in foster homes and ended up being raised by an uncle who was Native American. So that's how she learned her ways. But it's an interesting story. I just wanted to share that with you.
Thank you.
So
Wow.
Paula, you said you're taking more classes with Jean. What are you going through? What sorts of things are you learning?
Well, she's, I never realized there was a difference between being psychic and being a medium.
Yeah.
Because for me, it's always sort of blended. So she's doing classes at the Spiritualist Church on, learning different ways to use your psychic side.
Yeah.
And it's hard for me because I'm so used to blending, because I can see them, I can talk to them, I can get a description of them, I get messages, and I don't always ask for them, but I get them.
Yeah.
So, it was really difficult to separate, because what she's teaching the students is to look at a person, see their space, ask them if they can come into their space, and
Yeah.
then giving them a message, whether it's from a spirit or just spirit. And some of her students are amazing, because they've been studying with her for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And they're young. So they really, blow me away. I haven't been brave enough to do that yet, because I'm afraid I'm gonna combine them again, and that's not what I'm supposed to be doing. I do go there as a guest medium, but I always cheat. I take Shirley's little cards. Have you taken the Awakening? Have you taken Shirley's Awakening class?
Not yet, but we
Um,
will.
Oh, okay. She's got all these little cards that she created, and I put them in a basket. Everybody gets to pick out a card, and that's their message that I interpret from spirit. So I
Okay.
read their card, because they really love to share their messages. They don't want their messages in private, which I find very interesting.
Yeah.
So I'll read the card, and I'll say, okay, here's what spirit's telling me. And I just get total amazement. And I laugh and I say, look, I'm sorry, I gotta cheat. I need help. And they laugh, and they're fine. I mean, some days I just bring stones with me and let them pick out a stone, and we talk about what the stone is and the color. And Jean's taught me all of that.
Mhm.
She's an amazing teacher. She also taught me how to be a trance medium. Unfortunately, I pulled in the Blessed Mother, who scared the crap out of me. And Sally, you were there.
I was there.
Um,
That was pretty amazing.
yeah, but I mean, for the first time in my life, I felt total unconditional love. And I
Wow.
just sat there like an idiot and cried. And she laughed, and she said, yeah, she probably had one finger on you, Paula, because you'd have been a little bit more than tearful if she has come through me a lot.
Yes, she
But
does.
now she's actually going to work with one of my Reiki students. Because she said, I need to know more about the Blessed Mother. I wasn't raised up a Christian. So I had her read Arnold Michael's book, Blessed Among Women, and she just loves it. And she says, yep, that's the energy that's been surrounding me. I said, go girl. Because I'd rather deal with the angels. They're less threatening for me. Yeah, I know.
You're funny.
What can I say? And Carrie, by the
Ah.
way, your class on writing that you gave us a couple of months ago opened a door for me, and I am finally writing my book.
Oh,
Yes, I am taking a writing class with Kathleen McGovern and her partner Astara.
Yep.
And in 9 months, hopefully, I will have my book, which I've been trying to write for like at least 3 years. And people have been telling me all my life, you got such an interesting life. You've done so many things. You should write a book. And I would laugh and say, too many people have to die. Well, I guess they're all dead now.
Oh my God, girlfriend,
So
you're funny.
it's okay to write the book. Yeah. But I thank you because I was terrified until you gave us that class. And it was just like the way it flowed. I'm like, yeah, I can do that. Okay. And it's like this book is writing itself. I'm not writing it. It's, I'll sit down and write 10 pages and it's written before I know it and it's writing itself. So I thank you for opening that door for me because it needs to come out.
Yeah.
It's not fiction. It's reality.
that's
Yes,
such a
so
gift
thank
to
you.
hear that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you thank you for telling me that. That's just pure joy.
Yes.
I love to hear that. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing, Paula, and have fun. Just have fun. It sounds like you are.
I am. I just can't get it organized, but I suddenly realized I don't have to. It's gonna flow. They will help me put it where it's supposed to be. But I just sit down and write a chapter and just let somebody run with it. I'm just holding the pen.
It's a lot easier that way. We call
Yeah,
that
that's true.
surrender.
That's true, Nikki. It's a lot easier that way. I don't have to think about it at all.
That's
And
right.
again, it is my life. It is life experience, but it's
Yeah.
also other people's experience, and various people who have helped me get where I am. So, and it's a blessing to be able to acknowledge those wonderful people.
Yeah.
99% of them were women. And I'm grateful that I met them. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
You've done it. You've done it. Yay.
So I put a link in the chat to the Blessed
Okay.
Among Women. There's a free download on our website. So it's the madonnaministry.net/Charlie's Book Club.
Cool.
So that is a free download of that book that you referenced.
Just a wonderful book. I have
Yeah.
a copy.
It
And
was a
I have
wonderful
someone
book.
dropping by at the top of the hour. So if we could choose a topic for next week, we've got the one for the week after where Sally will do ceremony and ritual. But is anybody interested in speaking on a topic for next week?
I had one. It's gone.
Can you text me when you
I will.
find it
Yeah.
again? Okay.
It was here, but it's floated away.
Okay. Very good. So
This has
anybody?
been wonderful.
Yeah, it was a great
Great,
conversation.
great
Thank you.
topic, guys.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
great.
Awesome.
Beautiful.
So we need
Mhm.
somebody to pray us out.
Yes,
I will
oh.
do that. Cindy, you want to do it?
Sure, I can do
Okay.
that.
Go, girl.
Okay, well, first of all, Mother Mary, as I started my day out today, happy Mother's Day, as well to all of you lovely ladies, happy Mother's Day. And thank you for this group of amazing women and men and their energy, and just for today and just everything that you shared. Thank you. It was very beautiful. And Sally and Paula, the service I did yesterday worked out wonderful.
Good.
So thank you for your blessings and prayers. I was a nervous wreck for no reason.
Great.
But anyway,
We knew you'd do
so
fine.
thank
We
you,
have faith in you.
Creator, for having faith. Well, you know what? It's just another reminder, Cindy. Trust. You know that whenever you call your guides and angels in, they're there for you.
Mhm.
So for that, thank you, and God bless, and have a lovely day.
Beautiful. Thank you.
You also.
Okay.
All
All right, we'll see you next
See
week.
everyone next week, God willing.
Okay,
Very good.
blessings.
Have a
Bye-bye.
good week.
Blessings all.